All righty. As he said, I'm John Hayes. Some of you may be hams and know me as K7VE. And I'm here representing Amateur Radio Digital Communications. It's a private foundation based out of California. And we're kind of the opposite of most people. I'm here to give you money rather than asking for money. And I'll explain how that happens as part of this presentation. So our mission is to support, promote, and enhance digital communication and broader communication science and technology, to promote amateur radio, scientific research, experimentation, education, development, open access, and innovation in information and communication technology. I'm not going to read all the slides, but that's an important one. So we're governed by a board of directors. If you've been around for a while, some of those names are probably familiar. They're all volunteers. They do it as a service to the community. We have a staff, and just so as you talk to us, you'll know who we are. Rosie up on the left there is our executive director. Chris, who is based in the UK, runs our IT and also administers the IP addresses that we have as an organization that we make available to amateur radio operators. Chelsea is our grants manager. So as you go through the process of getting a grant from us, she's the one that handles all the details of that. Dan, where's Dan? Dan, who's right here, does our newsletter and other communications. He and I, as the outreach manager, are here for the conference. I'll be here through Friday, through the amateur radio session around noon, and then hop a plane back to the West Coast. We have a table in the exhibit hall at the far end down there. Come by and see us. And Chelsea is our administrative coordinator. So we have two missions that we fulfill. One we've been doing for a long time, since the early 80s. Basically what happened is some forward-looking hams went to John Postel and had a Class A IPv4 network allocated for amateur radio. That's 16 million addresses. And our other mission, and we make those available to hams for use in ham radio projects and to build networks based on IP. And that is run by our technical advisory committee, and Chris does the day-to-day stuff. Jan Tranjuski out of Germany runs a committee that oversees that technical side of our house. The other side is our grants group. And what happened is we took a fourth of our 16 million addresses and sold them a couple of years ago. And that generated a very, very large endowment. We're kind of unique as a foundation. We're not coming out with our hands out. We just give money away. You have to qualify for it. But anyway, the Grants Advisory Committee reviews any requests that come in. Those that get approved get a vote from this, and then we pass it to the board. I'll go into that in a little more detail here in a second. So, what have we done this year? Well, we've given away, actually that top number is now a little over 5 million. This slide was put together at the end of August, and so we have some more grants that have gone out. As you can see, for the growth of amateur radio, we put out a couple million. Education, which includes scholarships, 1.25 million, and so on in the chart there. We sponsor a fairly large number of scholarships. Those are usually generated through other organizations. We just provide the funds to do that. And we tend to like to do scholarships that cover a little more of the expenses than the $1,000 from the local community service club. We put our grants into the international community, not just the US. This is kind of where we were in 2021. So, applying for a grant. How many people here do open source? We're looking for people that do open source. We do need to, for tax reasons, send the funds through the types of organizations listed here. It can be a 501c3, a government entity, public schools and universities, their international equivalents. If you're an individual or a organization like even GNU Radio that's unincorporated and not a 3C 501, you can get fiscal sponsorship from one of those above listed, and we'll send the funds through that organization to pay for it. And occasionally we'll step out of that nonprofit, but it's very rare, and you talk to Chelsea about those requirements. Okay, so the categories that we are interested in, amateur radio, education, and technical innovation. So technology, experimentation, internet technologies, digital communications, particularly over RF, and communication science and technology. We have some aspirational goals we like to see in our grant requests. One is that it's a broad reach. It's very cool if you do open source and you're the only person that uses it, but we'd like it to go a little further than that. We're interested in social benefit rather than commercial benefit. So, you know, we're not here to do your startup funding for you. We're not your angel investor, but if you're doing something for community benefit, we're very interested. And we like to see inclusion of underrepresented groups, women, marginalized minorities, that kind of thing. We like to see projects that empower the individual to have control and you know, distribute the, just a second, distributed management versus centralization, preservation of the right to innovate. Hence, we require everything to be open source and published. So, applying for a grant with this. First, make sure you fall into one of those categories. Decide on the scope of your project. And if you want some feedback before you go through a formal grant request, you can contact us and we'll give you a little bit of review of what you want to do. So, one of the things I want to make clear, a lot of people don't have experience applying for grants, and those that do have experience find it painful. We don't want it to be painful. We're less bureaucratic, I guess is the term, than say going after a federal funded grant or something like that. We're looking for about 1 to 5 pages describing what you plan to do, and a timeline. We tend to like to do 1 year at a time. We can do more, but you know, lay out why that's necessary. And then we need your budget. And One of the things we found in some of our early applications is they were put together by people that like to go down to the third decimal point on the dollar amount. You can round stuff up. We know that, especially in a market where things are changing, you know, if a component you need is $1,895, we don't care that you put down $2,000 because the price might change a little bit. And we are flexible if things change after you've put your budget together. But we want you to be as complete as possible, and be sure to include things like taxes, administrative costs, shipping, all of those things up front. If you're working with a fiscal sponsor, there may be some fees associated with that because they've got to pay their expenses. We're okay with that. And we're getting close to the end of my time here, but we'll try to get through there. So you submit your proposal. We have an online system for doing that. That QR code will take you to a page that describes how you apply. It'll be reviewed by our committee. Then it will be, if approved by the committee, then it goes to our board of directors. Board of directors have the final say on any grants that we give. And then our grant manager will take you through the process, and we can release funds. We can turn around pretty quick. Some of you may have seen we gave $1.6 million to the MIT Amateur Radio Club. We did that in under 4 weeks. Review and funding. I think it was under 4, it's close to that anyway. So, go to the site, talk to us, think big. We don't have unlimited funds, but we don't have to go cheap either. If your project warrants it, tell us what you need. Questions? Anything online?
I haven't seen anything online, although I can quickly recheck. I did want to, if nobody else has taken the time, take a moment and say a particular thank you to the ARDC, because early on, when the ARDC was initially setting up its grant system, one of their initial grants was actually to GNU Radio. And so I believe it was about 2 years ago now, GNU Radio received $50,000 from the ARDC. And that pot of money has been one of the things that has made it possible for us to plan for events like this. Having that cash in hand and being able to have that stability as a project really has helped us. And we're looking forward now to using that money to do things like apply for outreachy interns. And it was one really pleasing thing for us to see that ARDC had already beaten us to that and was a significant sponsor of the outreachy intern program. So I thank you very much for what you're doing. It's going to have an amazing impact over the years.
Well, you're most welcome. And there are several projects that we have already funded that are in your space. There's the Open Web SDR project. We paid 95,000 euros, I think it was, to support an engineer to work that a year. We've got money in the M17 digital voice program, and we've got several other coming down the line. So please get a hold of us and let us know what you're interested in doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.